Hello, friends. Welcome back to another episode of the School of Self-Worth. I am your host, Nicole Song. Today, I get to do one of my very favorite things in the world, which is to introduce you to a graduate of my course, Seen as a Leader. And today's guest is Gloria Bui. When Gloria first started with me, man, she was so frustrated. She was feeling so unseen, unheard by her leadership at her work. And she came in really wanting to have a shift in that relationship and that experience for herself as a leader. And through the work that she did inside the course, she completely changed how her leadership, how her executives viewed her, and even more importantly, she stepped into her own internal authority, and it has shifted how she is seeing the trajectory for herself and what's next for her in her career. Her story is so remarkable. It is so inspiring. You do not want to miss this. So stay tuned. And before we get into it, if you are an high achieving Asian American woman who wants the exact steps to become the leader that executives advocate for and promote, DM me leader at Nicole Song on Instagram because I've got something over there for you. Okay, friends, let's go chat with Gloria. Gloria, welcome to School of Self-Worth. It's so great to have you on the podcast.
Thanks, Nicole. So great to be here.
It is my favorite always to be able to connect with clients around your experience and everything that you went through. And I always love reflecting back because that's kind of my favorite thing is going back to where you were when you and I first connected, which was, I guess it was probably around this time last year, right? Like a couple months in the spring.
Mhm.
And hearing what you were challenged with. And a lot of it, I remember at the time you had come out of some challenging feedback from performance reviews and you were just feeling like, oh, I needed something different. So if you would share with everybody where you were last year before you started working with me.
Yeah, wow. Seems so far ago, but I guess not that much at all. So, in terms of where I was about, where was I? About a year in almost at Macy's. And I felt like I had done so well and had so much impact within my first year, especially coming from consulting where you work on a project for a few months and it's more strategy oriented, so you don't get to see things implemented through if they even get implemented. And so I was on the ground with the team seeing stuff end to end, and so I was like, surely my performance review is going to be great, right? Like, I helped save the company so much money, I'm creating new programs that lift revenue. And to what you were talking to, I was definitely caught off guard. And so, yes, the impact was true, but where there was the gap is bringing stakeholder along. And so would come to the conclusion and feel really right in that. And that's what I was focused on. And so it was really jarring at the time, even though now it seems so obvious. And I just had that feeling of, oh, I work so hard, I care so much, I have good intentions, people like me, so this can't be the case. And so that was one component of it. And then two, the fact that it just, the feedback itself, but then how I felt, it just really kind of knocked me off kilter for days. And I was like, why is this so much for me too? So I didn't like the feedback, and then also the feeling. And then another component was I had a new boss. So there was a transition. And so I felt like I needed to also shift myself and my relationship with her. And so this confluence of factors led me to you.
Thank you so much for sharing that. And would you say, Gloria, that up until that point, you typically were somebody who always did get great feedback? Like you were always someone who's considered pretty successful?
Yeah, for sure. Like, since I was a kid, from both childhood to all the way to college and grad school, and I have the accolades and the resume. And so again, to hear that people weren't fully aligned on that was, yeah, again, surprising.
Well, I would say that's really common actually. And I find, so many of the Asian American women who come to me, and many of them from having been inside my courses, like they're really successful. They're really smart. They're just like you. They're so capable. They've done all these things. And oftentimes, where people start to recognize and see that something is a little bit amiss. It could be something like a performance review, or something didn't occur the way you expected it to, because you're someone who always is like, well, if I work hard enough, like it always works out for me. It always tends to happen. And so I just wanted to point that out for everyone who's listening, because, Gloria is not an exception in that case, where she was just sort of like, I thought I was doing so well, and now they're telling me something different. And that gap, like that perception gap, is often one of the major issues, I feel, for Asian American women when they're starting to reach a certain level in their careers. So coming back to you, where you were at, you were like, okay, like I really wanted, at the time, you really wanted to be promoted. And that was the biggest thing that we were talking about. And then what prompted you to say, okay, like I really want to work on something differently? Because you had also done leadership coaching and other kinds of programs before. So share with me a little bit, like what you had done, and then also how things were different once we started working together.
Yeah, what I had done before was actually a lot of coaching. So I went to business school where we had access to coaching. Also in business school, I had a pretty immersive and very popular course around communicating with presence. And that was something that I had wanted to work on. And even after that course needed to work on, it was great, but I felt like I was still missing something. And then in consulting, we also had access to coaches as well, which, all great, but they felt really cookie cutter. And didn't, I really didn't feel that much of a difference. So I came across your program and it felt a little different, and I trusted my intuition. I know we had conversations before it became finalized, but it felt like one geared towards Asian American women, which I appreciate that aspect of it. But then it also, again, didn't feel like generic corporate type of cookie cutter program.
So Gloria, when you entered the program, what did you experience right away? What was like the fastest change, the earliest change that you noticed for yourself?
Yeah, the fastest change was that I noticed that I could regulate my emotions a lot better. So back to earlier coaching, I, had heard the feedback to react, or excuse me, respond, not react. Or, when you feel like you're getting angry, take deep breaths or pinch yourself. And I knew all that, but I couldn't really execute. I was already feeling all the feels. And so through your tools, I learned that I could control and read them. And that was like such a quick win. And yes, I came in for work, but yeah, my husband certainly noticed soon as well.
Yeah, and I think it is something where people say that kind of thing all the time, but the actual practice, the how of it, can be hard to execute. And it sounded like for you then, some of the things that we work on inside scene that actually showed you how to do it.
Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah. And then what would you say then, right? Because you came in for work, and then obviously it started to impact other areas of your life. So as you started to regulate your emotions more, what changes did you see?
Yeah, I saw one. I, yeah, again, was not as emotionally reactive. And I think what that actually looks like as an example is like less defensive. So, I think coming from a background of perfectionism and where our culture often points out a lot of mistakes, I realized like from that, I would get very, I would be negatively expressive whenever there was criticism, even though I felt good about my work. And so that also impacts like personally, right? And so that helped like keep things more level. Um, and then what else? Yeah, just like quicker to forgive interpersonally, like with my husband, less likely to judge. Like people are doing their own thing, I'm doing my own thing. Like there's no reason to over infer from others' actions or interpretation of you. And so, yeah, well, I would say a lot, but those are some of the things.
Amazing. I remember that was like such a big one in terms of our own relationship with the people who matter the most to us. And then I remember for you, you had some really big changes in terms of how perception with people at work. How did it affect you just personally, like understanding how to operate differently, like in meetings or with leadership?
Yeah, I would say a few things. So, one was really learning to speak with intention. So, back to the emphasis on communication that I wanted to work on even before all this happened. I I felt the need often to have to try to speak up. I didn't want to be the quiet Asian stereotype. And I was also equally in environments where speaking up was what you were kind of like indexed on, whether it was like in business school, your attendance is on participation, or even if you're in a problem solving session and consulting, like the partner needs to hear you speak up, even though the comment might not be as strong. And so in terms of how I showed up at work, yeah, I wanted to speak with more intention. I don't even think I realized it was that at the time. I think it was just like speak with more stability and less speed. There's also a component of myself where I didn't want to waste anyone's time. And so I also spoke so quickly. And so I couldn't like get that like tick off though. And so in terms of like, yeah, perception at work, I think speaking with intention has helped with that because I'm not speaking to prove myself or prove a point. It's because, I have something to say and I want to say it. And then two, yeah, just back to not needing to feel as like defensive or that someone's perception of me is like indicative of my true value. It's just like what you say, like smooth as silk now. It's like, okay, they want to think that, or they, clearly don't respect me or like don't think I'm that smart, or maybe they don't, but maybe like before I would maybe receive that slight. So, but now it's like either way, if it's true or not, it's, I am who I am and I know my value. I know I'm smart. I know I have good intentions. And uh, yeah, that's okay. And I think in terms of also like feedback and like outcomes, like I used to feel very protective of like, well, this is the answer. Like this is, the right thing to do. Is like, isn't it obvious? Like the numbers should be reported this way. This is like actually how you show like correlation and how we can really dig into the things. And I've learned that there's so much sensitivity around numbers, whether it's like objectively right or wrong. And so being able to say like, okay, like what, it doesn't have to be like the best or perfect, but what do people align on, and feeling good about that and realizing that that's at the end of the day what kind of people see has also helped, I think, my perception at work.
That's amazing. So for you, like actually letting, I don't know, I'm just like having this feeling of instead of being so like intense or it has to be a certain way or so black and white, like just softer around stuff. But that actually has helped you to be able to handle like the ups and downs of what's going on at work.
For sure. I would say in my personal life and even professionally, I was like very rigid before because I had such like high standards for myself that I guess people really didn't value as much. And because, yeah, I think even if you think about my husband as an example, like it put a lot of stress on him too, even if the intentions were good. So yeah, just being more flexible and not letting outcomes, being detached to the outcomes has really helped lighten things. But then also at the same time, like lead to more impact.
Yeah, that's amazing. I remember one time you came into class and into session and you're like, "Oh my gosh, like I just had such great positive feedback." And I remember I think it was from your VP who was wanting to make sure you were in a meeting that was like important. I mean, did you start to notice and even like your relationship with your boss got easier? Like what else were you seeing for yourself or if you could share a little bit more about those experiences?
Yeah, I like became what I wanted to all this time, which is like, oh, that pivotal person in the room who's not
Mm.
even like necessarily like relate in this function because I sit in strategy, and so that came that was like the first big win where I could see that I was making like a really big stride in communication. But I think the root of that is truly being authentic and how I show up and my objective, not to like be smart. Like that wasn't it, which I think if I am honest with myself and like dig deep, that's like what I wanted to be. Like one of my old bosses before, um, she was great, and she was like, okay, what's your intention? Do you really want like the best outcome, or do you want to be right? And I felt like yes, those could be more, both be true, but I think I had this like flavor of like, oh, like I want everyone to know Gloria's like right and smart. And so, but yeah, just being again really intentional and yeah, speaking less, but when you do with more intention and gravitas has been a change. And then as for my relationship with my new boss, it's yeah, been a 180 where like partners now, really respect her feedback. I receive it so much differently. And yeah, that's been a great win.
And what would you say even so I love this. All of this is so great. And like what would you say was the difference for you? Because like those other communication courses didn't really help you figure those things out. Like what was the difference inside scene of as a leader that helped you really see yourself differently or even come into like this deeper level? What I feel from you is like this grounding, this stability, this confidence that was missing at the beginning and that you really evolved into during the course.
Yeah, that's a great question because in that course, communicating with presence and a lot of books you read, it is about authenticity being at the root of strong communication and strong presence. And I thought I felt really authentic. I know my values. I have a strong sense of gratitude. I show up. I care. And so in terms of the difference with that still being the same for me in terms of my values, I would say, yeah, I think it's the underlying intention again. So maybe like the values were authentic, but then maybe the objective was not. And I think through a course like Scene, is my intention to like get promoted for everyone to like see me as awesome while I might still have like great values, or is it you know my intention is to show up as who I am.
Mhm. And that's what shifted.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it
Yeah,
did.
and that's so powerful because I feel like sometimes people come to me and they say, "Well, you're not," like, "I want the corporate strategies or I want the communication tips." And I'm like, "Well, I can give you all of those, but it doesn't work unless it's coming from you having a deeper understanding of who you are." Like you just said, like, you have to know the root of who you are to really show up in that powerful way. And so I'm pointing it out because you said it really well, and I always like people to really hear that because sometimes I think we get so swept up in like, "Oh, here's like the 3 things you should say in these different situations." And while those can be somewhat helpful, the real strength comes from the ability to like know who you are. So whatever situation comes up, you can handle it.
Yeah, exactly. Another thing I will say now that you said is like, yeah, I would like literally listen to podcasts on public speaking and like frameworks from like Stanford GSB. And I was like, why can't I just like get it? And yeah, it's knowing who you are. And then if you do, then your intuition's even stronger.
Mhm. Yeah. And where else would you say then? So we like this is a lot about how you've been showing up in work and in life from the work that you were doing. And then how did it help you in terms of where you're headed? Because that was another thing you were interested in working on. Like, do I want to stay at this job? Where do I want to go? Do I want to develop my own thing? Like where are you at now with that?
Yeah, I would say I definitely have more clarity, one, and two, more patience, even though that clarity doesn't mean like I know exactly what the next step is. But where I thought I wanted to be when I started with you was be a director. And that was like, I need to do it in a year. And I always had this MO, I realized, like even in my other jobs, like I need to be M in a year. And what we had talked about is like, okay, what do you back to like what do I want and what is my intention? Like, do I really want that? Is that just another like check mark to get validation from the outside world? And so I, from this experience, have really learned like what energizes me and what environments do I do well in. And I realized like I haven't been putting myself in those environments quite often from a professional standpoint. It's usually for me, I really love working with people and like working on all types of projects and getting my hands dirty. And so I think something entrepreneurial is really what I need to set my eyes on and am. And so whether it's another startup or my own venture, which I'm also working on the side, I think that's where I want to be. And so I don't want to fall in the trap of getting the next thing that falls on my lap, which isn't to say I didn't work hard to get where I am at all. But I think, looking at things with more intentionality and what I want. So yeah, I think something a little more riskier is what's going to be at play.
Yeah, which is super exciting because, I think a lot of times we think that we know what we want, and I would put you in that category. You're like, "I thought I wanted to be a director," and then you're like, "Actually, I don't think that's what I want. That's just what I thought I was supposed to have at this point in
Hmm.
my career," right? And then now you're like, "Oh, no, there's more out there for me that I'm interested in and excited about." Because would like, this is something riskier and different and challenging, does that feel, like, fun for you or something like you would ever have considered previously?
I think I would have considered it for sure. I think I always knew I wanted to do it, but I would I have acted on it. Would I have
Mm,
just like let the next recruiter who told me about their fancy company or like big name lure me in, and then I go throughout my career not in a path that I intentionally set, and then how much do I delay that entrepreneurial component? And especially, given yeah, just like timing and everything. So I think now it's just like being more directive and setting boundaries for myself.
yeah. I mean, you spoke to something that I think is really common for smart, successful people is that you do get opportunity a lot, right? Like you've had many recruiters over time say, "Hey, Gloria, like there's this cool thing that you can look at." And then what happens, I feel like what we work on inside the course is having that discerning eye of like, is this actually the right thing for me? Because if you're listening to this, like I know you're already a successful person, like you're already accomplishing a lot, you're getting things done. And the challenge for you is like, is this the right thing for me? And is this the direction I really want to go? And I think, especially right now, with the environment we're in, there's like, if you're in tech, there's like tons of layoffs, like, there's a lot of change out there and it can be really scary. And so then it can make us cling, to things that may not actually be right for us. But I don't actually get that sense from you at all. I'm just saying that that can be sort of our cycle that we go into or our patterns we go into. And what I love from you, Gloria, is that that's not even at play. You're kind of like, well, I'm going to stay where I'm at, or I might move on. And it's going to be coming from you, not from what other people think you should do.
Yeah, for sure. And even as I think about the entrepreneurial space and the startup world, I've actually had to even know within that what do I want. And there are
Mhm.
times when I've been like, oh, should I have joined that startup? They're worth like $1 billion now. Like I should have done that. But I'm like, I'm not into affiliate marketing and more influencer purchasing. Like that's not me. I don't even have social media. So it wouldn't have been the right fit. Like it all worked out. But I even have to still temper myself, even though I do have more clarity. But
Yeah.
yeah, I'm feeling good.
Yeah. But yeah, I would say like I love that you have at least now the knowledge and the ability to say, "Oh, okay, is this the right fit or is this not the right fit for me?" Whereas before you might have just jumped at everything that came your
Yeah,
way. Is that
for
right?
sure.
Yeah. Yeah. And so what would you say, like, at the end of the day, like your biggest takeaway from being inside the course?
I would say one, invest in yourself. So two, or if you haven't done that, or are in a similar situation where you feel like despite all the hard work and effort and good intention, you're stuck. I think this is definitely a course to consider. Two, a takeaway is I am who I am, and I choose to define myself, and no one else can define that. And three, I would say, yeah, where everything is meant to be, and if we follow our intuition and chart our own path. And I think you've been such a great example of that. Like I so appreciate throughout the course, like your own story. And I still remind myself too, as I'm like, oh, like I love the startup so much, like, but it's not the right time. It's like, okay, timing, like when they maybe are a little bigger and need someone with more like strategic and operational leadership, maybe that's the right time. So it's like, like it's, don't beat myself up over it too much. And so I think just like having grace and trust in the process too.
Yeah. Yeah. That's amazing. Those are like awesome takeaways for you. And I know one thing that we don't always talk about that much on here, but I know you wanted to share a little bit more about is about the relationships that you build too inside the course and the people that you meet and what it's like even to be in a space that's led by an Asian American woman and is all a container for Asian American women. Like, what was that like for you? What did that give you?
Yeah, I loved it. I was gonna say that was like another takeaway. It's just like being in this space is so valuable. So I appreciate that the core is, yes, everyone wants to be seen as a leader. But two, there were so many different dimensions in terms of why the other women were there beyond that. So whether it's relationships with partners or children or parents, or just nuances around the work relationship, I learned so much from that because I think they're all pieces that we can take away. And I definitely did. I was like, oh yeah, I definitely, I remember one of our people in the cohort was talking about like, oh, I feel tethered to my job because of health insurance. And I was like, oh my gosh, I feel that because my husband's in real estate. And so just things like I wouldn't even think that would bother me. So it's good to get out there and have that space for the conversation. And then too, I really appreciated the diversity within the cohort of what, you know, an Asian American group looks like from both like cultures within and then also age. And so I thought it was, yeah, just like a fun group to connect on so many different ways.
Yeah. And well, I feel like there is, I would say this myself because I've looked for Asian American spaces and they exist and there's not a ton of them, right? There's not so many places for all of us. And part of the reason I love having that space is because I feel like I've always wanted those spaces more myself. And so it's so fun for me to have people like you who come in and really get to benefit from it. And then at the same time, right, see the diversity within that cohort is so much fun.
Yeah. And it's like, to your point, it's like rare. And then when you do have it, it's like, oh, like a happy hour or like, and then maybe you like get to know what that one person one off. But again, just to come together as like a powerful collective is really great.
Yeah, that's amazing. Well, what would you say for anyone who's considering the course then?
Yeah. Back to my one takeaway as
Mm,
a, I guess, stereotypical like frugal Asian American. It's worth the investment if you're really serious about putting the work into the program and want, to really like fundamentally change your relationship with yourself and therefore others around you. And I think, yeah, just like again, like group coaching. I think I shared this fact with you, but I was sharing with my friend who's a gynecologist about group coaching and how like I really liked it. And I thought that like, oh, if I want my bang for my buck, I need to do like one-on-one coaching. But this has been so great for the reasons we just discussed. And she emphasized that with what studies they have done in terms of group coaching with parents to be or
mm.
group teaching programs, because yeah, sometimes you're afraid to ask the question or you don't realize it's a question you have. And so just again, being able to hear and, build off each other is really additive. And yeah, it's just great. And I am glad, even though it's over, like I'm glad to still have you as a mentor I can go to.
Yeah. Well, thank you. I appreciate that so much. Like I love when I hear that what I've said is resonating just because I love knowing that you guys are still doing those things because that's the whole goal for me as a support for you is to be able to continue to like be in that discernment to have powerful choices in your own life moving forward. And then I would also say too, like I think that a lot of what is affecting us these days is like lack of connection and community, like in general. Like I think that that is something people struggle with. And so I love that you got that from this. And I think that's why group coaching also is really powerful because you actually make connections. Like I have a lot of friends, some of whom I don't see in person very often, but we connect a lot online. And I think that it makes a really big difference to have people who are on the same track as you. Cause like inside of Seen as a Leader, it's all people who do want that change, who want to see themselves differently, who want to show up differently. And I think it's so powerful to be like, oh wow, like I'm not the only one. Because, if you look at your coworkers or your friends, like they may not be in that same space as you. And it's really powerful to have a group that's dedicated to growth.
Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure.
Well, Gloria, it's been such a joy to have you on. And so now we get to wrap up with our rapid fire questions. I couldn't remember for a second. The rapid fire questions. Are you up for it?
Oh boy. Okay. Yes.
They're super fun. Okay. So tell us first, what is the last thing you watched on television?
The last thing, oh, this is so embarrassing, but I gotta be honest. The new iteration of Gossip Girl, so like the Gen
Oh,
Z version.
I didn't know there was a new iteration of
Yeah,
Gossip
I don't
Girl.
think anyone watched it. They just got to season 2.
That's a fun. Well, I was like an original Gossip Girl, like full devotee. So that sounds fun.
I know I betrayed my millennial generation, but It's definitely raunchier.
That's so funny. I love that. Okay, awesome. What is on your nightstand? Next question.
Oh, my nightstand, I have my Kindle. So I read, even if it's like 3 pages before I go to bed.
Mhm.
Um, my cell phone when I'm sleeping. And then let's see, corti or hydrocortisol. Is that what you do when you're itchy? Yeah.
Oh,
We've been
yeah,
keeping the windows open in the summer, but sometimes the gnats get to you.
yeah.
And then an eye
Okay.
mask because I'll put it in when the sun rises to get in a
Keep
little more
yourself
sleep.
in your beauty sleep.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
awesome. Love it. Okay, amazing. All right. And then what is the last thing that you tried that was new? And what was it?
Hmm. Oh, the last thing I tried that was new was bouldering. And I tried with my nephew in California. And I told my friends about because they do it. And then we did it again this past Friday. And then that was also, and the other new thing was biking from my part of Brooklyn all the way to Williamsburg, which even though they're in Brooklyn, they're so far. So I got a 2-for-1 that day. So that bike ride and free climbing.
Oh, that's so fun. That's like a very physical, active day.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. You're like,
I
awesome.
was tired. Yeah.
That sounds super fun. That sounds like my kind of day. Awesome. Okay. And then the last question is, what are the top most used emojis on your phone?
Oh, I like the smiley face with the sweat. I don't know. I feel like I'm so awkward, so I'm always like, "Ah." And then I laugh a lot, so probably like the crying laughing emojis. And then probably the pink heart. I love
Mm.
everyone.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, that's sweet.
Yeah.
Awesome. I always love, I feel like the emojis, I mean, we all use lots of different ones, but the ones we use the most are always pretty fun and telling. So,
Oh, I want
so
to know
sweet.
yours now.
Oh, no one's ever asked me that. So let me see if I can remember. I feel like, well, the one I've been using a lot, and I think it's because my baby is growing so fast, is the crying emoji. But like the crying from like,
Oh,
like, oh my God, I can't believe he's like getting so
is it the
old, or like
Waterworks one?
the waterworks one.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
Because like, or also like our friends with babies our age are having parties that we can't go to. And then I'm always like I want to go to their baby parties. So
Aw.
for some reason, I've been using that one a lot more recently. Yeah, I always use like some iterations of hearts. I use the laughing emoji quite a bit, but then I also sometimes, like I like to play around in there, and sometimes I like the little like slumped over smiley face, when you're like brain dead, or like you've been overusing your brain. Like I like to use that one, or because I'm like a big reader,
Okay,
I've
and
been
then I was like
using
a working mom.
and a working mom. But I'm in like, so right now, like when we're talking, book bingo is happening in Seattle, and it's like my friend and I always go for a blackout, which is 24 books in 3 months. And so the only way to do this, you have to read 8 books a month basically. And it's pretty intense and hardcore. And I usually read like a book a week is like my average, but that's a little bit fast paced right now with the baby. And so to do it right now, but I'm still committed to it, is that I have to like have an audiobook, I have an ebook, and then I also have a regular book, so that anytime I have any downtime, I'm reading something. And I was like telling her about this strategy, and then I have to use that emoji because it's like my brain is a little fried from like constantly trying to read books. And then we always have to take a break at the end of the bingo because I'm like burned out. I'm always like, I'm so tired from reading so
Oh my
fast.
gosh. I knew you were an avid reader, but I didn't realize that was your count. That's insane.
Yeah. So, well, I normally cannot. I mean, I would say my average before I had a baby was like 50 to 60 books a year. So I do read a lot. And then I did manage to, the year that my baby was born, I did manage to read 52 books, but that's mostly because I was on the couch nursing like so much. I actually read a lot. But now that he's more active and on the go, I actually cannot read nearly as fast as before. So that's why I'm having to use audiobooks and like other, because anyway, I just don't have as much
Yeah.
time as I used to, but I love reading. And so it's always this big challenge and this big push. And I always laugh because we don't really win anything at the end. We just get the satisfaction of
Yeah, I was gonna say,
blackout.
what's the prize?
Well, they don't even give out prizes. You just submit it, and then you hope they give out like 5 prizes, but like 2,000 people submit. So it's like the
Oh.
likelihood of winning is very low. But every year we just go for it because we're just, I mean,
Okay,
maybe
but that
that's
makes me
like,
happy that Americans are still reading books then, at least 2000 or.
Yeah. I mean, I love reading so much, and like it's one of my favorite ways to like relax and just like have fun. But every year during book bingo, my husband is always like, "Are you having fun? Is this fun?" And I'm like, "It is fun.
Yeah,
Let
no.
me just do it. And then I'll talk to you in September when it's over." Yeah. So anyways, that was a long explanation for my emojis,
Okay.
but that's just the state of the current emojis
And
is
to
more
your
of
point, it
those.
says a lot about you and
Yeah, it
best of
says a lot
luck.
about the person. Well, Gloria, it was such a joy to have you on the podcast. Thank you for sharing your story and sharing your insights. And it was just, I love seeing the growth of people within the course. And you were, to me, like just such an exemplary version of like you really dedicated yourself. You showed up every week, you did the work, and then that's when we get the biggest results. And so it was really powerful to see you come out with so much clarity and so much joy and so much ease. And just, I love when husbands notice the changes and things that are going on. So, anyways, I'm just so proud of you. And thank you so much for sharing your story with us.
Of course. Thanks for having me. And thanks for everything, Nicole. It wouldn't have happened truly without you.